Everybody, welcome to yet another meeting, and welcome to the people who are on the screen, and a particular welcome to Amy Garstang, who's from Wokingham United Charities, and she's come for the anti-poverty item to give a view on VCS perspective on the strategy. So after Laura's made a brief introduction, Amy, if you're happy to, I'll ask you to say a few words about how you see what we're doing. That would be really useful. Thank you very much. Right, are there apologies for absence, please? Sorry? No. Guy Granderson will be a little bit late, but he is coming. And the minutes of the previous meeting. Any comments? Or may I see those as a correct record? Those in favour, please. Thank you. Anyone against? Super, thank you very much. They're passed. And are there any declarations of interest?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I'm just abstaining because I wasn't here. I wasn't at that meeting.
Yeah, okay. I realised that was the reason. Thank you. Any public questions, Neil? Why did declarations of interest? Oh, I see. Your hand was up. Sorry, Paul.
Going back to item 78. Declarations of interest, just a minor declaration of interest for myself for item 81, anti-poverty strategy, because my wife's a volunteer for CAB.
Okay, thank you very much. And Rachel?
Yeah, it's not really a declaration as such, but I sit on the anti-poverty working group. So.
Super, thanks very much. Sarah?
I don't know if I need to declare this or not, but I'm a volunteer at Food Bank.
Thank you very much, all of you. Alison?
I also sat on the anti-poverty working group with Rachel and Laura.
Are there any others? Okay, thanks very much. No public questions, Neil, that I've heard of, or any member questions? Nope. Right, then let's turn to the anti-poverty strategy. I think, Laura, you're going to say a few words about where we've got. And the reason it's on tonight's agenda is not because it's finished and complete, but I thought members might like the opportunity to feed into it at this stage so that there's still time for new ideas to come into it. So I thought an interim report would be quite useful. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to just give a bit of context as to where we are with the strategy at the moment. It's about a page of A4, but do stop me, Chairman, if it's not brief enough. And then I'm really grateful that Amy is here, who chairs the Hardship Alliance. And then online, we've got Mark Wynn, who's the head of Insight, Strategy and Inclusion. So anti-poverty and equalities comes under him, and he's going to just do a quick some feedback as to the public consultation, questions and the answers, because it's hot off the press. It just finished on Monday. We do have an anti-poverty and equalities officers, but they're both ill, unfortunately, are there to be with us tonight. I want to stress that what you've got before you in the strategy and the action plan is a work in progress. It isn't what we think is a perfect document, and we're asking for agreement with tonight, far from it. There's a lot more work to be done on it. It's going to go through big changes before being sent in April for feedback, and essentially the final say before it goes to 6th of May. And the timelines have changed a bit since Graham Ebers last saw you in November, being elongated by 2 months to ensure that we do a thorough job. But with Overarching Scrutiny, we know we want to have it with input sooner rather than later, so that's where we forth it to now. But what you'll see in April, it'll be far more succinct with more empathetic language, clearer language, hold more data, and have a more detailed actions with measures, timelines, and owners. For a bit more context on the public consultation, we know that it's usually the people who will benefit most from a strategy like this don't always input online, so we've done our best to go to reach out to them. We do visible communications in the borough, on schools, talking to residents, while Hardship Alliance, we're running focus groups to get views on the strategy from older people, younger people, also housing tenants as well. We also went out to the Residents Equality Forum, which is a network of different groups of protected characteristics and charities to encourage feedback on the strategy from them and their networks. We also have the cross-party working group, which has reviewed what you've seen tonight. And we'll be meeting again next month with the Hardship Alliance. I realise I'm probably not being as brief as you'd like, Chair, so I will probably just go on to Amy now, if that's okay, if you say a few words.
Thank you very much, Amy. Please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So my name's Amy Garstang. I'm the chair of the Hardship Alliance and work at Wakefield United Charities. I think it's a great opportunity being involved in the Hardship Alliance and the anti-poverty strategy. We are really positive and enthusiastic about this opportunity and what the anti-poverty strategy can do for the residents of Wakefield Borough. I'll keep that bit brief and hopefully we'll get more detail as questions come in.
Oh, okay. Well, remember, this is a time for questions and for making suggestions rather than
Chairman,
making
it'll
speeches.
probably be worth Mark doing a presentation now, just on the public consultation answers.
Oh, yes, okay. Sorry, I hadn't realised that. Yeah. Let's go now. Thank you.
I've got a couple of slides here which I can share with people that let you see that the overview of the consultation. We've had 140 responses to the online consultation, which is quite good. In addition to that, there's been other responses come in by letter and by email. Consultation is quite positive. There's some suggestions around the categories. You'll remember there's different groups we're working with. Persistent hardship, just about managing, and asset-rich, cash-poor. The asset-rich, cash-poor, there's been several people suggesting that we shouldn't be focusing them at all, but then a lot of support from others for that group. We've also got feedback on some of the proposals that we've got to address the outcomes within there. Lots of things about how ambitious we are, whether we should be more ambitious around eliminating or eradicating poverty, whether we've got doing enough to tackle root causes rather than just look at short-term issues, but a lot of support as well about really doing more to reduce the stigma and encourage people to seek the advice and the support that they need at an early stage. Agreeing with targeted approaches rather than blanket policies. A lot of issues that have been fed in around some of the challenges people face and the need to do more in the way of lobbying nationally to try and get some changes brought in. And there's also been feedback around how easy it is to understand, that people generally really liked it, found it very easy to understand, but could there be something when we produce it that's easier to read and really summarize some of the stuff? So that's something we'll definitely take on board. And then how we package the strategy, whether anti-poverty strategy is the right title for it or not. So that's some of the recurring themes that we've had coming through that. I'm just pulling the last bit together from the other feedbacks that we've got. That will be combined with the stuff coming through from the focus groups, and then there'll be a full report going to the cross-party working group in March that looks at all of the things that people have said and the proposed change that we want to make. And that will obviously be a great opportunity to incorporate the feedback from this meeting and overview and scrutiny's thoughts on what we could be doing differently or should be doing better within the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very useful. Quite a lot of respondents. If it weren't to be called the anti-poverty strategy, what other suggestions were there?
I don't know if Mark heard that, sorry. Mark, you
sorry,
to reply?
Yeah, my connection was just dropping then, sorry. Something more around tackling poverty or addressing poverty, you know, those sorts of things have been coming forward as a bit more dynamic or proactive in what we're doing rather than just anti-poverty. But we're looking at that and we'll discuss that with the Hardship Alliance as well about how they think we should package it once the final reports are looked at.
Thank you very much. So are there any questions or suggestions? Rachel, I saw first, then Sarah, then Paul, and then Jim, and then Sam.
Thank you, Chair. First, I wanted to ask about the overarching objectives for the strategy. So the first sentence of the report that we have says that the aim of the strategy helps to prevent people falling into poverty. But I want to understand why the 3 objectives are really about supporting and strengthening people's resilience to poverty, basically accepting poverty, and not actually about preventing it. To me, the objectives are not really anti-poverty as such, and there isn't that much in there at the moment that's actually about preventing poverty. I think our objective should be much more about moving people out of poverty. Otherwise, what's the real point? So I would suggest another overarching objective, which is much more ambitious, and I'd be interested in comments on this. You know, something around doing all that we can to ensure that no one lives in poverty in Woking Borough. Would people support that? I'd be interested in comments on that.
Laura, do you want to come back on that?
Definitely, we're certainly going to be including a lot more on prevention. And we've actually been talking today to the Hardship Alliance about what can we do to be more ambitious with this. And we've still got to work out the wording, but it's something along the lines of a vision to identify where poverty exists in our borough and do all we can to eliminate it. And breaking the cycle as well is really important. And we're going to be looking into trying to get more data to actually be able to focus on where those pressure points might be to stop people getting into poverty, but also those people who are already in it to stop that cycle as well. So we're definitely going to take that on board. So that's certainly something that's in the mix.
Thank you.
Okay.
Amy, you're nodding away there. Did you want to add anything?
Just to echo what Laura said, the Hardship Alliance is all about zero poverty, breaking that cycle. So I completely agree with what you've raised. We need to be really ambitious with this strategy and then focus the objectives and the action plan on things that we can do. And there's nothing stopping us from being ambitious, but realistic at the same time.
I had a couple of other points, if I may, Chair.
Yes, of course.
Just leading on from that in terms of being ambitious, I'd certainly agree with the points that Mark had suggested were made in the consultation about lobbying. There's only so much as a council that we can do without changes in government policy. And there's a number of examples that we could be challenging the government on. We know there's a doubling of there was a doubling of people on universal credit during the pandemic, but there's nothing in there about restoring the cut to universal credit, for example. We've got the fuel crisis, not much in there about how we can lobby the government to really protect people from those increases in expenditure with the fuel price cap being lifted. We've got the national insurance increase coming in April. There's lots of examples. So, if we really do want to be ambitious with this, I think that's the way we're going to go. We lobby the government on other things such as house numbers. So why haven't we included anything in this about lobbying the government on poverty-related issues?
Laura?
We have discussed this with the Hardship Alliance, and there has been a lot of information back from public consultation on that. So that certainly is something that we want to include. We do know that we only have so much sway, so we're happy to decide on what that lobbying might be, but we do need to focus on what we can do as a council and charities, local businesses. And the feedback that I got from residents when I was on the Woking store was that it's everyone's responsibility to do their bit, but lobbying will definitely form part of this.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, if I may, just wanted to pick up the point about in-work poverty. That's not really that much in here in the actions, but we know from the detail of the report that we are likely to see more people that are claiming universal credit who are actually in work. So I'm interested as to why this issue hasn't been given more focus in the report. And if we're looking at what we can do and sort of doing everything as a council, have we considered actions such as the council itself showing some real leadership and becoming an accredited real living wage employer, and then also influencing others to do that and influencing its supply chain to do that? That's something we could do. And I'd like to propose that we consider that to show some real leadership and to have some influence on other employers in the borough.
Laura, come back on that.
Yeah, the just about managing, they're essentially the in-work poverty people. It does cover others as well, but I think we do need to be clear in the strategy about that. So we do know that it's covered. And there have been discussions about the Living Wage Foundation and what we can do on that. So yeah, that's certainly something that we can consider. I know that it forms quite a strong action in quite a few other anti-poverty action plans across the country. So we will look into that.
Thank you. Sarah was next.
Thank you. Rachel's actually asked quite a few of the things I was going to ask. I just wanted to ask Rachel quickly, actually, was that a proposal as in a proposal for this committee as a recommendation that you would like seconding?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. So if you would like to second that, that would be great.
That's great. So if we maybe do that at the end of this section, we'll come back to that. But no, that's great. I did pick up on the fact that there seems to be an underlying assumption in a lot of the wording that poverty is for people who are unemployed. And I think it's not just in some of the, I know you're saying in the under the objectives and the people who are just about managing, but I think just some of the wording in that I think needs to be addressed around that. I just wanted to come back on the prevention bit, and actually the very opening paragraph of the introduction, I just want to challenge a little bit, if that's okay, because that opening paragraph, and I can just read it out quickly so everyone's aware, Woking Borough has consistently been one of the least deprived unitary authorities, but we've seen an increase in people and families on low incomes as well as those facing employment and financial insecurity for the first time because of the pandemic. And it's talking about obviously COVID and that side of things. Yes, COVID is a significant issue, but the fact that we're opening with that, I think, is a little bit concerning, because obviously poverty is not just because of COVID. And I don't see very much in here at the moment about addressing the other causes of poverty. So inflation, high house prices, impact of buy-to-let, lack of social housing, zero-hour contracts, stagnant wages, welfare cuts, all of these things. And I just think we need to see a lot more of that, because that's the poverty prevention bit, and I'm hoping that we'll see a lot more in that in the detail, and maybe just some tweaks on that introduction there.
Yeah, certainly. I take that on board, because we know poverty existed before COVID and it'll exist after it. I think that there's just been a lot of work, and I'm sure Amy can speak to this as well, about really helping some of the most vulnerable during COVID and identifying people and really working quite well together with the council and charities. So that's certainly something we will consider. I wanted to just give a bit more context on the real living wage. As I understand, no permanent employee of the council gets below the real living wage. And I know that at the last council meeting, Councillor Boyd raised about Octalis and the frontline staff, and they do get the living wage, the real living wage, and that will be going up in April as well. So just giving that a context and background as well. Amy, I don't know if you want to add more.
I think the highlight of COVID is a positive in the fact that the council and the BCS really came together through COVID, and that is when I think it was highlighted the dramatic need for an anti-poverty strategy. So I take on board what you've said, but if it wasn't for COVID, I don't know if we'd be having this conversation. So in regards to the language as well, that's something that we have considered and raised, and I just want to say that for us, the co-production of this strategy means sitting down and going through it page by page. We want to cheerlead this, and if we're not entirely happy with it, it's not that we won't support it, but we want to make sure that it's right and really champion it. So it's early days, and once we have our further meetings, going through this page by page, looking at the language and making sure all of those bits are written right will be one of the things that we'll be doing.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. It was actually this committee that actually got the anti-poverty strategy going forward, which I would have hoped would have happened anyway, other than COVID. But no. Just two other quick questions. First one is, how much funding is the council going to be providing to deliver this strategy, Liz?
Well, we've been given a grant from the government, and a large proportion of it, 500,000, is going to go towards this. And that's mainly going to be helping with a lot of staff. So there's going to be, with a plan, to have a full-time project officer, and they're going to be working directly with the BCS to help deliver their projects against the anti-poverty strategy and ensure their voice is heard within the council. There's a plan to employ an inclusion officer, a funding officer, a debt officer to work within Citizens Advice Bureau, and a community support officer to help signpost those who are struggling. So we'll have a strong team to support the delivery of the strategy, ensure the BCS get the support they need as well.
No, that's great. Thank you. And my one final question was actually the interaction of the BCS group actually with the working group, because I understand that it's still separate meetings. I guess I could ask both of you from different perspectives. I mean, this is difficult actually, because obviously you chair, but the other members of the working group, are they getting the opportunity to talk directly with the BCS? Do you feel that you're getting access to all the working group members and feeding in that? How are you finding that relationship, and does it need any tweaks going forward?
Yeah, I can go first. So Hardship Alliance are going to come to our meeting next month, which is really good. They only formed in December, and your first meeting officially with the BCS was at the beginning of this month, so it's still been quite early days. But we look forward to having some good discussions next month. So all of the members of the cross-party working group and yourselves can discuss everything. We can make sure we're happy with the direction.
Again, echo what Laura said. So we're relatively new. We're still forming ourselves for the Hardship Alliance. The meetings previous to Christmas with the wider VCS, the Hardship Alliance was born out of. We've had our first wider VCS meeting, and we've got our forward plan now, which engages a timeline and our plan of engagement with the wider VCS. And like Laura said, we've got our invite to the first working meeting for the cross-party working group next month. So it's happening. It may be happening slowly, but there's progress, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Sarah, are you on the anti-poverty? Oh, okay. Which one? Rachel, I apologise to you. I thought you were using the word proposal in the general sense. I hadn't realised it was a formal proposal, and it's now been seconded. So as you've put a proposal on the table, we need to vote on that before we move on. Would you like to give us the words again?
Yeah, could I just come back on something Laura said as well? I do appreciate that council does pay the living wage, but the accreditation is about more than that. So it's about showing leadership and, you know, really setting an example for others. And it's also about our supply chain and our contractors and working to ensure that they pay the living wage, the real living wage as well. So just wanted to clarify that point. So the wording would be Woking Borough Council will work towards becoming an accredited real living wage employer and will encourage local employers and its supply chain to do the same.
Has everybody absorbed that? Rochelle, do you want to speak on that?
I just got one question about the establishing a range of job and training opportunities. I see apprenticeships, but I don't see anything like FE college.
Shall we vote on Rachel's motion? We'll come on to the other things in a minute. Okay, has everybody got the words? Have you got it down?
Most of it.
Could you kindly say it again, Rachel?
Yeah, Woking Borough Council will work towards becoming an accredited real living wage employer and will encourage local employers and its supply chain to do the same.
And will encourage, could you say the last bit again?
Local employers and its supply chain to do the same.
Thank you. All right, let's vote on that then. Can I see those who... Oh, you'd like to speak on it, Alison?
So I understand the statement. What I don't understand is what this committee is being asked, because we don't actually do anything. We just make recommendations. Who are we making this recommendation to?
Well, to the cross-party working group. Because I'll put it as one of the recommendations at the end. Okay.
Just needs to be part of what we're voting on.
Yeah, it'll become part of the substantive recommendation if we pass it. All right, then may I see those in favour of Rachel's proposal? Oh. 5, and those against, and those abstaining. Right, thank you. So that is actually passed with 5 votes in favour, 1 against, and 5 abstentions. Okay, thank you very much. So that will become part of the main recommendation at the end. Thank you, Rachel. All right, now let's come on to our list of speakers. Jim.
Thank you, Chair. Mark, I think it's Mark. I can't quite read his name from up here. MG, I'll get up there. Mark mentioned 140 plus responses had been received at the close of play on the consultation. How many residents fall into those most vulnerable groups? And where they are known and contactable by WBC, how have we encouraged them to respond?
On that?
Well, Mark should have the data as to the
Okay.
breakdown of the respondents.
Mark's on screen. Yep.
It doesn't tell you, you don't ask them if they are in those poor categories, or if they feel they're in poverty or not in the questions. But from reading the responses, it's evident that probably about 40 or 50% of them do feel they're in poverty. A lot of them feel that they're within the just about managing category. And that's just the ones that state it. A lot of them don't state things that would allow me to assume. But so certainly of those ones, probably at least 60 would class themselves as being in poverty or heading in that direction.
Okay, that's enough. That sounds sufficient.
Yes, thank you. So how do we know the numbers overall that fit into those particular categories?
Mark?
Yep. The data around this is one of the big challenges we've got, because none of the data sources are that current. So there's the households below average income is one of the data sets we've been looking at, which suggests 5,500, but that data is pre-COVID. So the most recent stuff is March 20 for the 1920 financial year. So it's got a 2-year lag. What we know is our free school meals numbers have gone up, and so that's the most current data we've got that allows us to look at the trends there. What we're doing at the moment is some modelling to try and work out the rate that's gone up in the past compared to the rate of change within the households below average income data to try and more accurately predict where we are just now. But it's likely that if they've gone up by the same rate, it's likely that we're probably more in the region of about 7,000. But that needs some further modelling on it.
Thank you. Now it's Jim. Have you
Couple more, if I may.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
On page 28, it mentions about town and parish councils. What briefings have taken place or are planned to take place with town and parish councils so they are then joined up with this process?
I met with the town and parish councils a month ago. In 17th of January, I had a meeting with them, and then they've been engaged in the consultation, and I made the offer at that point in time that once we've had the consultation, happy to rejoin their meeting again and go through some of the things. It's part of the role that would be taken on by the inclusion officer when that's created to then do some more of that engagement, as well as looking at the funding and how we work with them on funding to support some of the projects. There's only a couple of town and parish councillors who respond to the consultation. There's a couple of responses as well come back from individual parish councils. So that's all feeding in, but there's a good degree of appetite there, I think, for ongoing consultation, and a lot of the responses say that we need to work at that local level with them as well. So there's definitely opportunities there for taking that forward in a joined up way.
Okay, thank you. Just on page 34, it mentions about the energy benchmark in objective 3. Question 2 is, will that be based on the long established EPC rating, or is it something else?
It should be based on the EPC ratings, and we're doing as much as we can just now to get accurate data on that. But again, that's another thing that was the survey that was done in 2018 hasn't been redone, which enables us to look at numbers in fuel poverty. So again, we just had a meeting of a fuel poverty group this afternoon to look at what we can do to try and do some projections of that data to understand how many more people are likely to be in fuel poverty, given that some people have already seen a 50% increase in their fuel costs, and it's anticipated that next year there could be around a 25% increase. So that's going to push a lot more people into fuel poverty, and then therefore the need to do more around the ratings and providing support to those people as well.
Just one more, if I may. Just on page 35, it says about promoting mental and physical health benefits of walking, cycling, green spaces, etc. If I've read that right, it's got Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Is there a reason why it's only focused on Q2 and 3?
We're getting alignment with that between the work that's done within this strategy and the health and wellbeing strategy. So it's recognizing that we need to get some things in place, first of all, to work out exactly what can be done and when that's being done. So we've got discussions with the leads around the health and wellbeing strategy to make sure that our work on that is aligned and sits as one.
Because to me, it's an all year round focus, which should happen rather than just only 6 months of the year.
Yeah, that's when the activity to develop the actions will happen and to develop the work, but it will be ongoing as soon as we've started those discussions and been able to make some progress with that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And Jim.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Firstly, thank you to all those that have produced this. It's actually a very good start for 10, so thank you for that. I'm a bit concerned with how we as a council run our surveys. To be pleased to get 140 responses, that seems a very, very low level given the national focus and awareness of this topic at this moment in time. Perhaps that's something we need to look at, how we run surveys, but specifically on this strategy, the position and the picture of debt is, I think everyone appreciates, is going to change. There's a number of significant pressures coming our way. What I can't see from the strategy is any short-term actions that we need. So where's the priority of actions given the fact that we're likely to have a tsunami of debt over the next few months?
Laura?
I think in the beginning of the document, the paper, it says about all the things that we've been doing recently to help people. And Mark's talked about the fuel group internally that's trying to help residents and be more strategic about it. But as we sort of work up this strategy, we'll be focusing on the short, the medium and the long term things as well. So that will be factored in.
And is there anything, given the changing picture of debt, that you need to add to this that we could actually support if necessary?
Sorry, I didn't hear all the question.
Sorry. So given the changing picture of debt that we're currently seeing in the UK, is there anything short term that this committee could help with supporting that you wish to add to the strategy?
Is that a question for me or for the thing? I think we've got everything within the document. There's nothing that I can add to it at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we come to Sam.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, really great report. Really good to see the council focusing on the anti-poverty strategy. I think it's a really important issue and one that means a lot to me. Just reading on page 40 and page 20 where it summarises as well, just keen to understand around, it says that a quarter of it's been a rise of 1 quarter from peak pre-COVID levels around the demand for free school meals. Just really keen to understand how the council are going to look to sort of increase publicity for this and get engagement to increase uptake.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, we are looking to increase it. I think a lot of people think, no, of course you want to decrease it. That's a sign of poverty going down. But we do want to make sure that we are maximising people's what they're eligible for and be able to take away that stigma from it as well. We were talking about it today as to, there can be a stigma of not wanting to claim free school meals because they think, oh gosh, is my child going to get singled out here? And actually, we as councils, a lot of us are governors for schools, and we need to do our best to make sure that parents are being communicated to that the school, hopefully, is not singling out children at all. And there is a way to go around it. And I talked about my experience of going to a borough school, and the beginning every term, they'd say, can all the children who are eligible for free school meals come up to the front, and they'd be given a token. And I think I and a lot of my classmates were given the view at 11 years old, we would never want our children to get free school meals be singled out. And we need to make sure that that is not the case anymore, that they all sort of have a card and that child doesn't even know themselves that they're receiving a free school meal, and to make sure that governors are questioning this and making sure communications are going home to parents to say, do you claim this? And actually, you might think your child is going to be singled out, but they're not at all.
Thank you, Laura. And I think that's a really valid point, and thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Laura. I fully agree with what you just said. How are you going to persuade the schools to do it anonymously?
I think it's conversations, and I think, you know, us as councillors need to take responsibility, especially the ones that are governors, to be able to have those talks, to be able to make sure that, you know, you're not giving a wristband to a child who's eligible for free school meals. You're doing it in a more empathetic way, that's a lot more equal, and to pressure schools to really just be more empathetic and communicate to parents that this is something that is a good thing for them to take on. I think it's
it is important, because I think that quite a lot of parents in Wokingham don't claim the free school meals because of the shame in their minds of having to do that. So the more anonymous it can be made, the more people are likely to claim them. Thank you. And Rebecca?
Firstly, I've got first-hand experience of that because I was a lead first aider in a big secondary school, and it is very anonymous. I've seen it happen, and it is because everything's done on card, and the children, it happens when they go to the till, whatever, to get their meals. So it's just a bit of clarity, so that is reassuring. Also, I really wanted to applaud you both because, especially with Amy, there seems to be a good, positive relationship here. So that's really positive. I think if we have a good working relationship, there's a good chance that we can really do something useful here as a council. And I think that's a really key thing. So well done. This looks like a really good start. Just for clarity on my part, being fairly new to all of this, you talk about you're going to report back, measuring your success. The action plan will come back after a year, and looks like there's going to be KPIs. How are we going to see them? Is it going to come back to overview and scrutiny? What's the plan there?
So I think the plan is to come back after 6 months, so we can actually report back onto success as the action plan then. We're still deciding on the measurements because it is quite complicated, and we don't want to have any perverse incentives. We do want claims to go up, not to go down. So it is something that we're discussing with Hardship Alliance and wider to see that we make sure we get that right. And it's really good to know about your experience in schools and how positive it is. So the focus does need to be more on making sure parents know that too.
So the other thing I was just going to say, I think I've forgotten already what I was going to say, sorry. No, the key performance indicators. So are you going to be working to look at what those, they're not going to be dictated to you, what you feel that will really show that we're actually doing something here? How are you going to manage that?
So it's still something we need to discuss to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And it's something we're talking to the Hardship Alliance about because, we're well-meaning, but it is the Hardship Alliance, the voluntary sector who are the experts in knowing actually what direction is actually good. We know claims of more free school meals, more universal credit is good. We want it to go up before it comes down. So we just need to make sure that we get that right and we're not incentivizing people not to encourage people to claim universal credit or anything like that, because that's not what we want to do at all.
Thank you.
Rachel?
Thanks. I just had a couple of follow-up points, if I may. Just on the relationship with the VCS, obviously, that's going to be key to this. But a lot of the strategy is based on the VCS actually delivering a lot of it. So I think we need to be really clear about the accountability for this and how that works. Because if a lot of it, the delivery is actually being sort of farmed out to the charitable sector, we need to be clear who's accountable. So have you had sort of thoughts about that? And one idea would be, we've got lots of objectives and action points in here. Could we actually state, a council lead member or a council officer for each objective so that the accountability is clear that it's a council strategy developed in partnership with the VCS?
Yeah, definitely. We are going to have departments named in here and owners for the council, so we know who owns it all. And I've said about the team that is going to be supporting the VCS and Hardship Alliance, so they will be the main team driving this forward and being steered essentially by the Hardship Alliance.
And just one other point for Mark, actually, sorry if I missed this earlier, but did Mark get a feel for the consultation answers? To what extent that the respondents were actual people that were or are struggling, and to what extent the respondents are sort of concerned individuals or actually from the VCS representatives?
Good question, Mark.
Yeah, about 50% are probably struggling. There wasn't many organisations that responded. I think probably about half a dozen different organisations responded to the online consultation. There was a couple of town and parish councils, but certainly most of the people that were responded to it were sort of older. Others, I think about 30 that were less than age 45. So quite a few of them were in the sort of older categories where they felt they were in the some of them definitely asset rich, cash poor. Others were in the just about managing category. So it's certainly around 60 or so. From looking at it again, around 60 would be considering themselves as being poor or on the brink of being poor.
Okay. Norman.
Thank you. You touched on this, Mark, in response to one of the previous questions, but looking at prevention or getting in at a very early stage, it's going to be very much data driven. And I just wonder how we can go about getting more accurate and up-to-date data. It seems quite a difficult thing to do, and I just wonder what tools are at our disposal to do that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and it's something that the Joseph Rowntree Foundation have been lobbying quite a bit about, is the need for much more current and accurate data. And we were getting data shared with by the DWP, which was something that was promised through the COVID Local Support Grant, but that hasn't provided the level of data that's required to make it usable. So it doesn't allow us to actually tell much from that. What we'll be doing is we'll be working with our VCS partners as well to work out what data they've got that can help understand some things. We're looking at specific bits. So the fuel poverty meeting that we had earlier today was looking at some of the fuel data and knowing what they've got available there that can feed in. So we're looking at working with officers across the council to identify the different data sources they've got, and then looking as much as possible as how we can bring that together to drive the right actions. And one of the things that we talked about earlier was the household support grant, which has had 718 applicants for that. And that's one of the bits of data that we're looking at how we can use things like that and understand those people and what else can be done. And looking at the 120 homes that were insulated last month through the grants available for that. So looking at monitoring those things will help to understand some of the opportunities and some of the areas where we can focus work. But look at the broader range of data sets that are available at a local level, recognising that national data normally comes with about a 2-year lag, which is a bit meaningless for monitoring the strategy in the real time.
Okay, Norm, thank you. I'll come to Rochelle next, because she's not had a chance to speak yet, and then Sarah.
Okay, page 34, the last one down, establishing a range of job and training opportunities. You're talking about apprenticeships, provision of paid work, but you haven't talked about FE colleges or further, or any kind of college or university work. Because what the old program used to be to get an HNC or HND would be you'd work for in the mornings, and then in the afternoon you'd be released to go to uni or to go to college to finish your training. So it's paid during the time, and also having people receive bus passes so they can actually get to uni or get to college without any problems. A lot of people don't have the money to pay for that. I wonder what we could talk about that as well as just saying apprenticeships. Can we add something like that?
It would be great to get some of your insights into that, because there seems to be a lot of data there. So yeah, if we can speak offline as to what we could do, that would be really great, Rochelle. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on something that was discussed earlier about the free school meals and just elaborate slightly. I mean, firstly, actually, I mean, talking about the stigma of free school meals, I think extending the age that children have free school meals as standard, because obviously Key Stage 1, all children have free school meals, so you don't actually have that stigma because no one is singled out. So maybe that is something that this council could lobby for a changing government to extend the age that free school meals for all are given to, and that would really help with the stigma. But I also wanted to ask, I know that we talk about free school meals because it's a measure that we use for poverty, but there are other things going on in schools as well. So school uniform is an issue, some of the technology that's required. I know some schools are, better than others at helping in those regards. And I guess I'd like to know how the council will actually help encourage schools to sort of be more inclusive and sort of end that stigma associated with that, please.
I know that we've talked about this, Amy, and I think was Emma Cantrell from First Day's idea of perhaps to have a standard or an award for local schools of how inclusive, accessible they are for school uniform and all sorts of other things, so that they can aspire to it, and it can be something transparent for parents to know if that particular school is inclusive, accessible for everyone. So that is an idea that the Hardship Alliance already proposed.
Oh, that's fantastic, thank you. And I just want to very quickly ask on the consultation. Was the consultation sent out to users of, say, the food bank or users of Share or clients of the CAB? Has it directly gone out to people there to get their feedback, Mark?
Yes, it has. We've sent out to the Hardship Alliance members and asked them to circulate to any people they had that would be interested in responding to it, to try and get it out that way, as well as through social media and other avenues. We've also got some focus groups that are being had, one being held by First Days with families, one being held by Age UK with older people, and one with the Citizens Advice with some people that are receiving debt support from them. And then we'll look at enhancing that with another one with the tenants and another one with care leavers. So that gives some real insight into the sort of things they're feeling, how their behaviours have changed, how their shopping patterns have changed, their going out patterns, and the sort of things they're feeling in real time because of hardship and the rising fuel costs and that. And so that will be supplementing the numbers to give some real qualitative input as well. So there is a good bit of activity to try and get that access to the right people that are able to inform this from their lived experience.
Thank you. So can I just check with the food bank and Share included that in that? Because I don't believe they're part of the Hardship Alliance, are they?
They're not directly, no.
Can I come in on that?
Yeah.
So as part of the consultation, public consultations, we had engagement days outside Asda Lower Early, and one was at Share. So myself and a couple of members from the council went down there. We weren't there with the questionnaires as we were outside Asda, but actually speaking to the people and taking on board any comments that they had through those conversations and fed that back in anonymously via the Hardship Alliance and back to the strategy and consultation.
Yeah, I've got you, Jim, but Alison first and then Jim.
Pupil Premium, which has been around for quite a few years now, is for all children from low-income families. And one part of Pupil Premium is free school meals. A significant element is that the school receives money for that child to make a difference in their education. It might be providing necessary IT, giving them extra support in different ways. Is there a fear, Laura, still that children in reception year 1 and year 2, as Sarah said, all children receive free school meals, that their parents then don't make the school aware that their child, should be receiving Pupil Premium? Therefore, the numbers of children receiving free school meals may not include those who would qualify for it if it was a separate thing. Also, we need to be doing more to encourage all parents, to make the school aware so that the school can be receiving that pupil premium element, because it's going to help make a difference. And, we can't start that difference when they join Key Stage 2. The school's got the money earlier. It's going to really help. So I think, although it could be a great thing to do if it was extended more, if that was affordable, it could equally mask those families where the children need the pupil premium, but the school's not aware, because as we've discussed, people do feel some stigma and they don't necessarily want to come forward. I've had a child on free school meals, and I must say that when at Bullmersham at Kendrick, my child was treated very well. Never felt it was any issue at all, because of course in secondary schools they all use their thumbprint, and they've got an account and the money's in there wherever it's come from their parent or from the free school meal funding. I don't know how it works at junior schools. When I finished, that would be nice. Thank you. So Laura, is there a fear that the numbers don't include Key Stage 1 children because the schools are not aware that they're from low-income families?
I can't say for certain, but we can certainly look into it. Amy, I don't know if you've got anything to add on it.
I think it just goes back to the language and the interpretation of that and the stigma. What we want to shift the attitude to is it's a helping hand rather than a handout. And that will take time because it's been generations of the benefit judgment. But this is all great stepping stones towards that. And if we can help people at their time of need and get them back on an even keel, let's do that. And let's do it early. Let's be proactive about that. And the free school meals thing, I think that's interesting. And I think that there partly is a little bit of that. But I think schools nowadays do make it a little easier to access that support.
Well, I'm sure schools would be doing all they can, because additional funding to help the children, because they absolutely want to do their very best for every child as an individual, and the funding's only going to help that.
Jim.
Thank you, Chair. On page 21 of this, firstly, I'd like to say that I'm fully supportive of some of the very good ideas in this, so I'd like it to go with full support. It talks about proposals and costings being developed for consideration by the executive. Can I also ask that when those costings and proposals are developed, they'll come back to overview and scrutiny?
Laura?
Yeah, I verbally explained what the funding would be and what it would be spent on. But certainly when we send round in April the more finalised strategy document and action plan, we can send details of the proposed funding too.
Okay, thank you. And I've got just one question for Laura. Page 24, the people that have signed the document. Can I just ask, Fiona Price from Age UK and Emma Cantrell from First Days and Jake Morrison from CAB, are they part of the working party?
They're part of the Hardship Alliance, which Amy chairs.
Right, so they are involved in putting this together.
Yes.
Super, thank you. Now, I know that Laura's been making a lot of notes while we've been talking, but we have come up with quite a number of ideas and suggestions. So, Neil, how are our comments and suggestions going to be communicated to the cross-party working group?
I'll put them together and we can do it as a letter from yourself, Chairman.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you very much. Right, well, let's look at page 17 for the recommendation. There's a few things I'd like to change, including the proposal that we passed. So I'll read it all out as I see it. The committee are requested to review and commit on the strategy and Year 1 action plan in order that comments can be considered along with the ongoing public engagement to inform finalising the strategy for submission to executive after the May elections. And then can I add a sentence? The chairman of Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee will send a letter to Councillor Blumenthal summarising the comments and suggestions that this committee has made. And then, to pick up what Rachel said, we recommend to the cross-party working group that Wokingham Borough Council will work towards becoming an accredited real living wage employer and will encourage local employers and supply chains to do the same. Is that more or less what you said, Rachel? So with that as the recommendation, may I have a seconder for that, please, if I propose it? Thank you very much, Alison. And those in favour of that as a recommendation, please. Well, I proposed it, so I need to vote. Thank you. Anybody against? Thank you very much. And many thanks too to Mark and Amy and Laura for coming tonight and listening. I hope you found the comments useful. I know there's still a lot of work to be done, but hopefully what we've said tonight can help you along that way. And thank you very much for all the effort that you're putting into this strategy. I know it's taking up a lot of time. Very worthwhile. Thank you very much indeed. All right, so now then we move to the next item on the agenda, which is item 82, the Equality Plan update, and that starts on page 45. And Laura, you're going to be here to talk to that as well. So would you like to begin?
I will. So in a moment, Mark is going to present where we've got to with the year one actions and how we're achieving against the Local Government Association Equalities Framework and our next steps for improvement. Our equality plan launched last year and our cross-party working group on equalities is still going strong and has helped guide the year two action plan and where we are today. One of the key things we've been focusing on has been training, and members will soon get an email highlighting available equalities training for councillors and more interactive sessions which external trainers will lead. We also have launched a new Residents Equalities Forum where members represent groups and charities focused on protected characteristics. We've had one meeting at the moment and the next one is programmed for a few weeks' time, and there is an aim for them to input and review into the year three equalities action plan. Overall, we're focused on getting results as well as truly listening and learning from our community, including trying to forge relationships with those hard to reach groups, which proves a challenge and we can't shy away from that. It is a fact, but we are trying our best. And equality is a responsibility for us all. And it's not enough just to attend training. For example, there is a focus in our plan on equality and elected members. And we as councillors can directly help by being more inclusive and encouraging more diverse candidates to run for election and get elected. I'd encourage you to engage and feedback through your cross-party equality working group representatives and look forward to hearing from you on where we are today. And I'll hand over to Mark now.
Mark, are you there?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We've got a little or a good bit of progress on this within the year one action plan, which was focused on the getting us to the developing stage of the framework, recognizing that developing is where we're meeting our statutory duties. So that's absolutely where we want to be at this point in time. It's achieving year two, and then look at year three and beyond about what aspects we may want to become excellent in, and after the year two action plan's been completed, then we'll be looking at doing a reassessment with the LGA to look and see if we have got to that achieving level. The focus on year one was very much around some of these themes here, where there's been quite a bit of success with getting the Residents Equality Forum set up as part of the community engagement. There's much better communications and page in the equality page on the website. Procurement has been a key aspect of the progress, and then customer experience, monitoring the complaints, and developing a quality data monitoring guidance is quite key. Data insight is being informed with Berkshire Council's Equality Forum, where we're active members of that and lead a bit of the work there. Looking at the quality impact assessment tools and guidance and the quality profile to get more understanding around that. Then with the audit and members learning development, you work with the cross-party work groups been really key and really helpful in taking this work forward and getting that to greater understanding. And probably the biggest area of work which is going to need a lot of embedding to get to that achieving level is the HR and workforce aspects, with the learning development, the recruitment, and then the quality data. And a big drive for that is going to be getting more people, more staff to be submitting their quality data. And so we understand more about the workforce and their characteristics, with about 70% of staff currently declaring their disability and ethnicity. So there's a drive there to do more. So as I said, the aim there is to get towards achieving through the year 2 action plan. At the end of year 1, we've got here the 17 strands of the quality framework. We have got to the developing level in each of them on our self-assessment. Year 2 will be very much about embedding that work, building those foundations that we've established during year 1. So continuing the work with the Residents' Equality Forum, enabling us to reach better, involve them further, and have much more of an input into the quality work that we're doing, building up that strong communication presence, and raising a program of awareness raising events, and promoting various different celebrations during the year around LGBT+, Eid, Neurodiversity Week, Black History Month, and a range of others that are being scheduled throughout the year to help really demonstrate the diversity of the borough and things that we can do to be supporting that. Within procurement, you strengthen the profile of quality consideration to procurement processes more fully. Customer experience, there's been a lot of work done there in Jackie's area and continuing to do that, and looking at the GovMetrics data around complaints and customer satisfaction. Data and insight is quite a key area that we need to progress on and embed for year 2 as well. So there's a lot of things there that we will get done, and then following the completion of year 2, we'll be looking at a formal reassessment with the LGA, which is one of the things we get with our signing up for the local government equality framework, that we can ask them to come back and do an assessment of where we are, which will then build on what we've done for ourselves this year and enable them to formally state whether we have achieved the achieving category, and if not, then where the gaps are that we can continue to do that. But getting towards achieving is really about continuing to build on the foundations, the building blocks that we've set during year 1, which is where we are just now. So that's a quick run through of where we are, and I'm sure you'll have lots of questions around the action plan and what we've done to deliver that.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Rachel, Sarah, Rachel, Alison and Sam.
Thank you, Chair. I first wanted to ask about the Residents' Equality Forum. So I'm looking at page 51 of the pack. So action point 5 talks about the Resident Equality Forum, and then also action point 10 is about listening to a diverse range of community groups. The update for the number 10 says that that's part of the Equality Forum. So I just wanted to understand whether those two had basically been merged, and whether there's any risk there that actually by doing, if we are doing that, that we're not actually, there'll be a lot of individuals who won't necessarily join community groups. So might we be missing out on the opportunity to actually be engaging with the right people there? Also linked to that, could I have a comment on the BME forum and how the Resident Equality Forum fits with the BME Forum and whether the BME Forum has actually met, because I understood it hasn't met for quite some time. Thanks.
So I can answer on both those. So yes, number 10 is wider, and actually the Residents Equality Forum in the first meeting did feedback to say, you know, this needs to be wider than just this group, which is definitely our ambition. So we are going to be doing more. It isn't just we've got the Residents Equality group and that's job done. No, it will be much further. And on the BME Forum, Involve have been facilitating the BME Forum, and we are trying to revive it. There is a member of the BME Forum within the Residents Equality Forum, as well as other representatives from people from the BME Forum. But obviously it's early days for that. But that is where we are at the moment. So that is just the latest. But I don't think they've met unless Mark knows more.
Okay, I had a couple of other points, Chair, if that's okay. One is on Action 18. I was interested to know so this is on equality impact assessments. So I was interested in what training has actually been given on that and whether we've noticed any improvements in that area.
Mark, do you have an update? Because I know Bryony was leading on it.
Yeah, and Bryony was leading on that, yes, and I know training has been given. I know it's a constant area of work to try and improve the quality of these everywhere. I can look at some specifics for you and come back to you with some specifics around the training and the impact of the training, but it is an area that in all councils need to be in continual focus to make sure that we're always driving up the quality of impact assessments. And particularly as we review that, one of the changes we'll be looking at the quality impact assessments during this year is to actually embed poverty considerations within that as well. So we'll look at much wider inclusion aspects of that. But I can come back with some specifics to you after the meeting once Bryony is able to provide me with that.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to just ask about pay gaps. So I can't see any mention specifically of pay gaps in here. So the obvious one is gender pay gap. The council has quite a large gender pay gap, but there are obviously other pay gaps, so ethnicity pay gaps, etc. So I'm interested how that fits into this strategy. Where does the strategy address that, both at a council level, but also in terms of, you know, influencing others and setting a good example across the borough?
I was going to ask Mark if that's something that we can pick up with Bryony.
Yeah.
Yes, that's something we'll pick up with Bryony. It does feature within the Year 2 action plan, where a lot of the work in Year 2 is around the HR, things like that, and monitoring those bits. And that's part of the drive for making sure that we're getting more of the demographics data for our staff to really understand this workforce that we've got and be able to look at all of those pay gaps. But we'll get an update, more of an update from you, but it's certainly very fundamental within the Year 2 action plan.
It is something that the Personnel Board looks at quite regularly, along with the lead on HR. But I think one of the issues is that a lot of women don't want to apply for the higher paid jobs. How we overcome that, I don't know, but it's certainly something that the council's looking at already. Okay. Sarah.
Thank you very much. I've got a couple of specifics and then sort of more general sort of bit of feedback. Firstly, I wanted to ask, this is Action 17, which is role model behaviour that promotes, encourages and showcases the benefits of diversity in our community. And I was wondering if going forward we could look sort of expanding that. I mean, a role model would also be an organisation that calls out, speaks out against hate speech and things like that, and not being silent. And is that something that we could consider as an action going forward, please?
Certainly, we can discuss that cross-party working group.
Well, thank you. I wanted to ask about protected characteristics in the Equalities Act, and are we going to look beyond that? I mean, for example, we've just had the anti-poverty strategy. Are we going to look at socio-economic factors as well?
Mark, as I understand, that is the ambition, but I don't know if the framework is specific in any way on that.
Yes, that is certainly what we're doing. So we're including socioeconomic factors in our quality impact assessment. Bryony will be reviewing that over the next couple of months and linking that in with the training so that we can ensure that we're not just revising the EQIA format, but also training people in what to look at and how to do it. So that's something that we look at having completed by the end of Q1.
No, that's great. Thank you. One of the questions, while you're on there, Mark, one of the questions I was going to ask actually was about the assessment, because initially I thought it was self-assessment, but you said that the LGA do a formal assessment. Is there a cost associated with that, or is that something they offer councils for free?
It's something that we get from having signed up for to the local government equality framework. So, but what it doesn't make sense to do it all of the time. It's much faster to do our own self-assessment. That's why we did that in year 1, and then end of year, after year 2 is completed, is the right time to do another assessment with them, so that we can get that peer view on where we are rather than just reassessing ourselves.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about peer reviews and what we're doing, benchmarking and working with other local authorities who are good at this. So we're doing any work around that?
We are, yes. Bryony works across the southeast and particularly in Berkshire to look and see where we are with others. We're doing quite a lot of sharing action plans, progress, and understanding what we can learn from each other, so that we don't each reinvent the wheel. So there's a good bit of sharing there that does help us inform us and demonstrates to ourselves where we are in comparison with others, which shows out to be quite favourably.
No, that's great. Thank you. So just 2 other quick points. So firstly, one of the actions under priority 2 was we will model active community leadership through collaboration and co-production. Now, I don't believe that this strategy was co-produced. We're talking about the action plan having some involvement. Going forward, can we be assured that not only will our work on equalities be co-produced, but actually we look at co-production and across the whole of the council and everything that we do where it's relevant?
Obviously, we can only really speak on this, but yes, of course, we can look at it here.
Okay, I just thought that this was about getting the whole council to, look at equalities. And my concern is we do have some projects that don't really consider certain characteristics, and if they're, if we're looking to influence the whole council on this, then does this strategy have the ability to do that?
We can certainly look to see if co-production, where relevant, is useful, because it won't be relevant everywhere, but certainly we can take it back.
Okay, no worries. And just my one final point is just more generic. Reading through this, it seemed very data focused, very data driven, and I understand the importance of data, and it is obviously going to make a big part of this, but I just wanted to make sure that we are talking about individuals as well, and not statistics. And Rachel's already picked up on the point from the Residents' Equalities Forum. I had a couple of questions about that because I wanted to make sure that those individual voices are heard as well. But there was just quite a lot of the language in here made me think this is more about data. And as we progress through this, are we going to see individuals coming out? Not individuals, but you know what I mean, that we're recognising the individuality of people through this.
It is very much about the individuality of people. I think the really good thing about the local government equality framework and the work gender inequalities is that there's a very clear framework to work towards, whereas with anti-poverty work, it's up to us to work out what we need to do. So we're very much responding to the framework that's there and looking at the things that are within the framework. But as we do that, we're absolutely focused on the individual people. And one of the bits of work, what I talked about with encouraging more people to declare their equality characteristics in the workforce, then that is very much about having those discussions, building confidence, and very much viewing people as individuals and understanding what the barriers are to that. So it is very much based on individuals rather than just data.
Yeah, and I think the barriers is important. That's actually that was it. The objective 3 coming into the appendix 2, we will use feedback from residents to identify barriers to equality of opportunity. The action against that doesn't marry up with that. It's talking about marking key diversity dates. I'd like to see going forward a lot more on actually, because this is talking about equality, but what we really should be striving for is equity. And I don't see that word used in there once. And it's those barriers. It's not just accepting that, it's what can we actually do to ensure that there is that level playing field. And I'm just not seeing enough of that in there. Is that going to be something that's being addressed going forward?
Yeah, we'll build more of that in, and there's more within the underlying actions rather than just the headline action, but we'll certainly continue to build that in.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I come to Paul.
I thought there were some others in front of me, actually. page 52, item 15, it talks about case studies. And it says that one's already been published. Where's that been published, and where will the other ones be published?
I think it got published quite a while ago. So it did go out on the, I remember the communications team getting in touch with me about this. I think it went out on social media channels primarily. And there will be more case studies to come as well.
Right, I don't remember seeing it, and I couldn't find it on the website.
Okay, I will ask the comms team where it ended up.
Okay, thank you.
Alison?
Thank you. So the full council approved our equality plan in 2021, and these actions were set. I just would ask Appendix 1, which is very blue, much as I love blue. I think perhaps a RAG rating on each one, to show what's been achieved, what's in progress, would make it a lot clearer for us scrutinising this. My second point was Action 22, equip staff with demographic tools to help understand the diversity of the borough. And the profiles being created, which is fantastic. Is it possible to share this with members? Because I think it's very important that we all have that tool to understand the diversity of our borough. But even more importantly, possibly to have that for our wards. And then my third question, point, was about number 15, celebrate successes. Where was the first case study published, and could you perhaps tell us about it?
So I've just answered on that question about the case study. So I think it was on social media, but I'll let you know what it was about and where it ended up, because it was a while ago now. Yeah, there are RAG ratings to these, but they seem to not be on here, and I'm not quite sure. They are all mainly green, apart from a couple of amber, which I think Mark can talk about a bit more. And then remind me, Alison, what was your last question?
About not just officers having demographic tools showing the diversity, but if a profile's been created for the borough and by wards, could that be shared with councillors?
Yes, I can't believe I forgot that question. It's a question that I love, because this is something that the council is working on. So there will be, there is an ambition for breakdowns on equalities data for members to be able to look into their ward and just be able to log on and see it all. So yeah, there is an ambition on that.
That's great. Thank you, Laura.
How will we find that out, Laura? Where will we find it?
So it's being worked on at the moment. So once it's available, we'll publicise it to members.
Yeah, but how will it be publicised?
I'll ask for an email to go around to members.
Thank you. That's super. Sam.
Thank you, Chair. My question, well, firstly, great again to see this report. Some really key points here that are being looked at. My question was around Action 11. Really, something again I'm really passionate about is, looking at the consideration of modern day slavery in contract and commissioning activities. I think, in the world that we live in today, I think often with very complex supply chains, and often, could be procuring services or goods or products that often you don't know where it's coming from, your supplier and their supplier and their supplier and their supplier, and often it could be slavery involved. And it'd be interesting to just see what we could do as a borough and as a council to look at this and take a bit of a deeper dive into maybe our supply chains and more deeply.
Yeah, we'll take that on board, Sam. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And Jim?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to, even though I don't see it as a conflict of interest, just to say that I have contributed to the cross-party working group on this, so if that can be registered for previous. I'm glad to see that this initiative has been funded, and it's a quite significant number of amount of funding in this. That's really good. I'd just like to understand how we work through the programme, or when we work through the programme, when we'll overview and scrutiny see how that funding is being used, and to make sure that it's effectively used, and also to support the initiatives if they require more funding at any point in time.
I should point out that there is actually a typo for the funding, because at the moment it's £1.5 million. I wish it's actually £151,000, so we do apologise for that. But it's up to this committee to decide if it wants to look at the Year 3 action plan when that's been developed and influence that. Also see about how the impact for Year 2 actions are doing as well. So that is down to this committee.
I was quite surprised to see 1.5 million, I have to admit.
Would members like to see the extra year when it's finalised? They're basically nodding, so yes, please. Thank you. If there are no other questions, I've got 3, please. Oh, Rochelle, sorry.
I would like to say there's one group missing from this equality, diversity, and inclusion. The Royal Berkshire Fire Authority actually includes LGBT also in this, and especially in this area with a lot of transphobia going on in the press. We really need to be inclusive of all groups in the borough, not just racial, not just anything else that seems to be included here. We seem to be forgotten on a regular basis, I would say. And I'd like to understand why we weren't included.
Well, LGBT is a protected characteristic, so it does come under the equalities framework and across this plan. But is there anything specifically that you think is missing or you'd like to see going forward?
I think that it should be mentioned in this equality and diversity program here, that you should include this as well. It may be protected, but so are racial, so are some other things here that are included in this, and it should be included as well.
If I can pop in there, because Rochelle, you've given me a superb introduction to the 3 things that I was going to ask about. And firstly, I wanted to say that Rochelle and I attended a really very interesting training session a week or 2 ago on EDI that the fire service ran. And new to me was the group of people which are called neurodiverse, but in everyday language, people who are on the autistic spectrum. And I haven't really seen them as a diverse group before, but I learned an awful lot about how to work with them, how to make them more comfortable at work. So my first question is, can they be included, for example, as one of the groups that we work with, and particularly looking at number 28, if we could perhaps do some work to attract them to work for the authority, because they're very often extremely intelligent people. They just socialise with people in a different way. So we should include them, I think. And secondly, more or less a similar question to Rochelle's, number 13 on page 52, Berkshire Council's Equality Forum established. My question was, is the fire service included in that? Because they're doing a great deal of work on EDI. In fact, it's in the fire service formal inspection, the work that we're doing on EDI. So they would have a lot to contribute. So could they be included in that forum, please? And the third question, it's been suggested at the fire service that we share training with local authorities to save resources. And I just wondered whether, if it's useful to you, I could email you a couple of contacts so that we could share training with them, because they do some superb training. It doesn't always overlap, but sometimes it's very similar to the training that we're doing here. So if you don't mind, I'll email you a contact or 2, because we've talked about that at a meeting on member development actually last week. So may I do that?
Yeah, that would be fantastic if you could. As I understand, the Community Safety Department, I think they do work on training and with the Fire Authority as well. But if we can duplicate things as well, that would be fantastic. On neurodiversity, the Kimmel Foundation is part of the Residence Equality Forum, and they focus on neurodiversity. And Brian is actually working on getting them to do some training for members and council staff as well. So we are increasingly focusing on them. And so, yeah, we take your points. Mark, do you know about the Berkshire Equality Forum, if the fire service is on that?
I'm not sure if they're included or not, but we'll certainly find out from that. I think it might just be councils, but we'll certainly find out if they are. And Brian, you can suggest their meeting that if they are doing very good work in that the fire, that they maybe should be included and get some learning from them.
Thank you. You say that there's been work on cross-group training, but I've not seen any. The only cross-group training I've ever seen is one session with Bracknell Forest. So if they are doing it, they probably need a bit of a bomb behind them to do it a bit more.
Yeah, I think it's worth us exploring what the Fire Authority does, because it sounds like they're really heads and shoulders above others in this. So yeah, let's try to see if we can work together more closely, and we'll try to publicise what's already been done as well.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions or comments, then let's move to recommendation on page 45. So I've slightly changed the tense. So it reads, the committee has considered progress on delivery of the Year 1 action plan and note the Year 2 action plan, which will continue to deliver progress against the local government association's equality framework. Fairly bland recommendation, but are you happy with that? Those in favour then, please. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Super. Thank you very much indeed, Laura. You've had quite a session this evening. Thank you very much for that. Right, now we turn to item 83, Customer Excellence Programme. And after a long wait, we welcome Gregor. Would you like to do a very brief presentation on the paper, Gregor, assuming that we have all read it anyway?
I will give a very brief introduction, Chair, and then I will hand over to Jackie Whitney, who has been leading this fantastic piece of work, to take the questions of the members, if that's okay with you. Wonderful. Thank you, members, for this opportunity to come and talk with you tonight. With significantly more ways for residents to contact the council and access our services, it's important that we take the opportunity to review our customer strategy and to improve our customer experience. We want to become a customer-centric organisation. That means putting residents at the very heart of everything that we do and communicating with them in the way that they want us to communicate with them. The Customer Excellence Programme that you're going to discuss tonight includes residents in helping to shape the strategy. Residents and their voice will be included across the work streams as we seek to improve our customer experience. We don't want to create a strategy in isolation of our residents, as many have done so before. We want to hear how they want to interact with us and then build processes around that for the whole council. The final thing I wanted to say is that members may have some questions around the timeline for creating and embedding the user experience change across the council. Rest assured that we will work as fast as we possibly can do, but it's more important for us to get this vital piece of work right than it is to do it quickly. Don't get me wrong, if there are things that come up from resident recommendations or from their engagement that we can implement quickly and that are beneficial to the council, we will do. We will implement them as fast as we possibly can. But overall, in terms of moving our council towards being a customer-centric organisation, it's hugely important that we do this right. And that means taking the time to really consider it and do it properly, rather than rush it and trying to implement it quickly and end up having to review this again in a couple of years' time. Now, Jackie Whitney has been leading this fantastic piece of work for the last few months and will be leading it going forward. I'll hand over to her, assuming that you've all read the brief document that is in front of you, to take your questions and answer anything that you may want to know more about.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Gregor. I'll just give just an overview really of the papers that you have in front of you. I just thought it might be helpful for you to give a little bit more context in terms of the process and how we've kind of come about to do this programme. We know that we're only here because of our residents, but we do know that sometimes they don't always have the best experiences when they interact with us. So we also know from more recent gathering of customer feedback that some of our online services aren't always the easiest to navigate, and the design of some of our resident-facing processes could be better. We know that. So the Customer Excellence Programme, as Gregor's just outlined, is a 5-year organisational change programme where there's pieces of work that are wholly focused around putting our customers at the heart of what we do and essentially treating their needs as if they were our own, which is where we want to be. In your packs, you'll see that we've been working with people that we are going to be working with people from across the council, our partners, councillors, yourselves, and customers also to deliver on this. There'll be 7 individual areas of work with a specific focus for each area. So, for example, a customer excellence strategy, digital improvements, community engagement, and so on. With each area of work informed by data and obviously customer feedback, which is really important. There'll be improvements, as Gregor said, that we can just act upon, so we'll just do that just to make it better. But some will take more time, but we will test and then retest with our customers to make sure that we have really made things better. There's a lot of work already happening, and we've identified those in your packs as the cross-cutting projects. These are also integral to the programme. They're really important because with our customers, they need to act as the golden thread throughout those programmes too. The aim is for our residents to have a better experience when they interact with us by not only seeing tangible improvements in the way that they access information and services from us, but also in the way that we communicate with them. Hopefully that's given you a bit more context and an overview. So obviously open to any questions.
Thank you. I was just looking at the data that you're gathering. So in particular about engaging with town and parish councils and also about councillor feedback. How do you see that working?
So as part of the governance structure of this programme, we are creating a cross-party working group. So similar to the one that you guys have for the equality programme, we're doing the same sort of thing, and that will help us to create that overarching strategy, the customer excellence strategy that we need, that will everything else will kind of hang off of, and then obviously the action plan underneath of that. We are increasing the amount of engagement, not only with our customers, but with voluntary sector organisations and town and parish councils. That will come, and we will make sure that they're included in any of the focus groups that we run around improvement, and also keep them informed and updated because they are part of our community. So this is about us, in a way, co-producing what we do and using our partners to kind of help us deliver customer excellence.
Thank you. I think it's really valuable. You know, I have second hat of being a parish councillor. A lot of us do lots of different things, and we all know there are issues. Well, we know there are issues with everything. We're all trying to do the right thing at the end of the day. Yeah. But actually getting it to all work together is tricky. So I think anything you can do to improve that will. The lines on which parish councils communicate can sometimes get a bit blurry about who they, you know, dedicated officers and whatever. But I think that would be really helpful.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Jim.
Hi. Can I just say how pleased I am to see this finally come to overview and scrutiny? As you know, I was involved with the initial stages of this. I think this is the most important piece of work that as a council we are undertaking at this moment in time, because it's how we build our relationship with all of our residents. So I fully support this. The only thing I will say is I don't think the slides do justice for the amount of work that you've done to get this far. I've seen some of it and I appreciate it, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Jim.
Sarah?
Thank you. I don't know actually the background that's gone into this, so but no, thank you. I'm really pleased that this is here. You know, as councillors, we're sort of on the front line quite a lot, and we see the good and we see the bad as well. So I've just got a couple of questions. Firstly, there's lots of data gathering. Are you actually going to listen to some sort of real life problems, some case studies and work them through as well to try and sort of get to the nub of problems as well? Because I know that when we look at the KPIs in this group, we look quite high level at complaints and things, but it doesn't really sort of unearth stuff. So we are going to be looking at case studies, are we?
Yes, absolutely. So we're really keen to get into the root causes of issues, whether they be just minor issues, just run-of-the-mill stuff, or something much more complex. For example, we're working with some colleagues in adult social care who have been out talking to some of their clients and customers and reporting back on kind of lived experience of interacting with the council, and maybe some of the areas where it's been, it's been less than helpful. The access to council services hasn't been very easy. So we're really working with those. We're using quantitative and qualitative research in order for us to kind of, inform the design that we have going forward. But then we'll also want to go back and retest, because sometimes when we make things, we improve things, but actually there's been an unintended consequence and we haven't made them better. So what we want to do is we want to go back and retest things with people with lived experience as well before we go live on things. So.
No, that's great to hear. And I take it you'll be coming to us councillors as well, because we actually hear a lot of these things from quite a broad range. And a lot of it is one particular area that, council services go across all areas, but we hear a lot of it and we see patterns as well.
Absolutely, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to also ask about the acceptance of what's being done across the whole of the council. Are you getting any pushback from any areas? This obviously is going to be a bit of a change programme here. How's that going, and how are you going to overcome that?
It's going really well. So far we have engaged with leadership teams, so the directors, assistant directors, and also the work stream leads of the people across the 7 work streams in your pack. My service itself has kind of repurposed itself to meet, so that we can really drive this as an agenda. It's not ours to own, it's an organisational piece of work to own. But what we have created is some customer excellence business partners. So we've repurposed some roles so that we can really work with each directorate and work with our colleagues to kind of make that change from within, if that makes sense. So taking that, so rather than, working inside out, we're working outside in now, taking that customer view, the data, and working in a more kind of closer way with our colleagues in each directorate under the realms of kind of that business partner role, and it's working really well. We haven't had any pushback so far, so that's good.
Great, thank you very much.
Can I ask, the cross-party working group that was referred to, who's actually on it, please?
So yes, I can give you some names. Bear with me, Chair. I haven't yet engaged with any people on this group because I wanted to come here first and obviously share the programme with yourselves. But the cross-party working group, there's been, let's have a look at some names. So we've got representation from all groups, Shirley Boyd, Jim Fruham, Stephen Conway, Pauline Jorgensen, and Gregor will chair. I don't know if Gregor wants to come in and make comment on that, but that's the names that we have in terms of attendance at the moment.
Yeah, Gregor?
No, I won't add anything to that. I think, as Jim has already alluded, he's been involved in a lot of this work already, and I'm hugely grateful to Jim for the time that he's given to this piece of work already. I echo his point, and this is one of the most important things that we as a council will do, because it is our public face to all of our residents. I think the work that Jackie has set out to do is hugely ambitious, and as a councillor group, it's going to be really important for us to make sure and drive this piece of work forward and really deliver against the expectations that Jackie has set for the council, and also the residents want us to deliver as well. And so I think the cross-party group that's going to be working on this, there's a great task ahead of them, but also a really fantastic reward on the back end of it as well.
Could you do with more members, or is that sufficient?
I'll let Jackie.
I'm quite happy to take suggestions for any further members. I think the key focus for this group is really to get the customer excellence strategy right to begin with. We need that strategy aligned to the corporate plan and what we need to achieve as an authority for our community. We need that just right, with customer input, before we start kind of running off in a certain direction. That's the direction, that's kind of the tone, the behaviour, the competence that we need to set across the organisation. But absolutely, please do forward me some names, or if anyone is interested in finding out any more, please make contact. I'm more than happy to talk it through.
Thank you. I've just got two thoughts to feed in. They're both fairly specific. The first is that I still get very frustrated when I phone customer services to have to listen to a whole lot of stuff about if you wanted to, you could go online, etc., etc. If people wanted to use the online way of communicating, they would already know about it and they would already have done it. If they make a phone call, they want to speak to a person. And I would be a great deal happier if all of that was just cut out and we could go straight to a person. That's just for, my own personal view, just for a comment. And the second is another suggestion. Sometimes residents contact councillors when they've already tried to have a problem solved through the normal channels and have failed. And in order to cut through that and get something done, the councillor needs to go directly to an officer. Now, I find it a problem knowing which officer to go to. I'm afraid sometimes I go straight to the head of department and say, please pass it on, which is not ideal. And I know some, for example, I know that Andrew Fletcher is in charge of footpaths, but I don't know who I would contact for a street light that's gone out. So is it possible that councillors could be given a list, and I know it'll be a long list, but a list of the right person to contact about all of the various problems that come our way? And I know staff change, but it wouldn't take much to send an email saying X has left and Y is now doing that job. Just a thought.
Absolutely, yeah. So we have our own, believe it or not, my team has their own reference sheets as well, because we're quite a diverse organisation. As you say, people change all of the time. So yeah, we can certainly get something set up for councillors and send it out to you. That's not a problem.
Please, that would be really helpful. What will you email it to us?
Yes, yep, we can do that.
Yep, lovely. Thank you very much. Right, then we have considered the update. I don't think there is a resolution about this, other than to thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more person wants to speak, and that's Jim.
Sorry, I've just got to come back with a question again, sorry. When we've spoken through this before, what this actually leads to is a behavioural and cultural change, not only for our residents, but also for ourselves as an organisation and also for councillors. Now, part of the frustrations from personal as a councillor is some of the language we use. Where does that simplification of language and talking into language that real people can understand sit within this plan?
I'm glad you asked me that question, Jim. We're currently working with an organisation called The First Word, and they're helping us adjust our manner and tone as an organisation. They have just reviewed over 50 of our documents, which include strategies, policies, complaint responses, things we send out to our residents and customers all of the time. So those items that land on their doorstep or in their inboxes. And they've given us some feedback on how we feel and how we sound, essentially. and we are working really closely with them now to make some improvements. So we're just on the early stages of receiving their feedback of how they feel that we sound. And they've scored us against a certain set of criteria. So things like how easy it is to read, the clarity, accuracy, empathy. And they've given kind of each document a score and then given us a kind of a score overall. But what's really good is the rich information that they're also giving us around some of those items where maybe we've put something like 75 words in the same sentence with no grammar type thing. So what they have then done is they've come back to us and said, OK, we're going to create some big ideas for us to work to, but make sure that it's sustainable. So they're also going to be leaving us with something where we can sanity check and quality assure ourselves once they've helped us develop this new kind of tone. But essentially the aim is to make sure that when we write, when we speak, when we communicate, we do so that all, not some, but all people can understand what we're trying to say.
And is that sitting under tone of voice?
It is, yeah, that's
It is.
absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's under tone of voice, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we had the written tone as well.
Yes, absolutely.
If I can just add something to that as well, and then I'll let you get on with your meeting. Members will remember that a few months ago I came with Sally Watkins to talk about the website improvement plan as well, and the numerous web pages that we monitor. As part of that tone of voice work, we're also reviewing all of the information that is presented on our website and all of the documents that are presented on our website as well, reviewing the tone of voice for every single one of them. And as we migrate over to the new website platform and the new website design, all of the tone of voice of those web pages and documents will be reviewed and amended accordingly to make them more accessible, more understandable, and using a lot less words than they currently do.
Okay, is that everything? Well, again, thank you very much, you two, for your patience and staying so long at the meeting. Thank you very much for answering the questions. And very good luck in the future development of this. It's really, really important work, as somebody's already said. Thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, then now we move to the item 84 on page 65, the annual reports that go to the full council. It's really just a question of saying, are you happy with them? And me to ask Guy and Alison and Norman whether they're happy with the bits that are related to their committees. Anybody have any comments or things they want to change? In which case?
No, I'm content with mine, just highlighting on the budget as the main thing for this year again.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm happy.
Lovely. Okay, thank you very much, Neil, and let's move on.
Yeah, very happy with the HOSP one. I think there's just some of the tenses need updating because we did have an extraordinary meeting on Monday, so we have received the winter plan and we have scrutinised maternity services now.
Do you want that amended in the report?
Yeah, I'll speak to Maddie tomorrow.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Right then, let's move on to item 85, the current executive forward programme, page 85. Any comments on that? In which case, then let's move to the next item, which is the committee work programmes, page 93. Sarah?
Yeah, it's just in reference to the email sent around the other day about we had obviously 2 items from tonight that haven't come and they've been put on March's agenda. And looking at March's agenda, I cannot see how we can get through that level of work in the time and actually do it properly. If at all, there's 7 major items there plus the extra ones. And I think we need to consider what we're going to do about that. I mean, a suggestion was we have an extraordinary meeting to add those in. We have a longer meeting. I don't know. There's some options. I don't know if Neil wants to comment.
Well, if I could comment first, Sarah, and tell you what I'm going to do about it. Yes, you did email me, and I took on board your point very readily. I'm very happy to be democratic about this. We could have an extra meeting if members wanted to, or we could have an extra long meeting in March. I'll ask Neil to comment on that now while you think about it. And then in a minute, I'll have a vote, and I'll just ask you, put your hand up if you want to have an extra meeting in March, or put your hand up if you want to have an extra long meeting in March. Guy, you want to say something first?
Yeah, just on that, before we go to Neil, is there actually the capacity in the calendar is the other aspect I would like to know on that.
Yep. Well, Neil, on to you then.
Is Paul indicating?
Oh, and Alison, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just want, what does an extra long meeting mean? Because I mean, we currently meet 7 till 10, don't we? And we can extend till 10:30. I mean, did you propose we would start earlier, or we go to 11? I just would like just a bit more clarification.
Well, I would hope that members would be careful in the amount that they say, so that we can remain at 7 and remain finishing at 10 with a possible extension till 10:30. But that's entirely up to the people on the committee and how much they say. And Paul,
yeah, the point I was going to make, Chair, was are there any particular items that could be deferred?
Until after the elections, you
Yeah.
mean? Right, I'll hand over to Neil now then for his comments.
Okay, so a couple of points. The first item on the list, waste strategy, I understand is not going to be ready for March due to lack of progress. They've only had one meeting of the cross-party working group, so that's one less. The item on bus improvement enhanced partnership, I believe the government's extended the deadline, so that may not be going to executive on the previously announced date, so that may be able to shift as well. And on Guy's point, it is very difficult to arrange additional meetings at the moment. So if members could get through the agenda in one meeting, that would be very helpful. And we can go on to 11.
We can. Well, that's helpful advice, Neil. I will put it to the vote, as I said, but my personal preference, having heard what Neil's just said, would be to have just one meeting and for it to go on until we finish. But being democratic about it, could I see those who would like to try and fit in an extra meeting? Right, and those who would be happy for the longer meeting on March 17th. Anyone abstaining?
I'd just like to say I'm flexible for either option, whichever suits everybody else.
Thank you very much indeed, Julie. Rebecca?
Could I just ask to aid it? You know, we don't need huge, long presentations. We get the agenda. So if we could keep the presentations down, we read it all. And that really does help. Actually, tonight that's helped. I think we've all found that useful tonight. It's been a short, synopsis, so that would be a really good help.
Indeed. Well, I did mention it at the beginning of the meeting to ask people to do that because we will all have read the agenda. And I think it worked well. Thank you. Sarah?
I was just going to add to that. The one presentation we did get tonight, I couldn't see anyway, so it was too small. So I couldn't read anything on it. So.
Right. Noted by Callum, no doubt. Okay then, Rochelle and then Alison.
Could we possibly get some of these presentations in advance? And that might do that and make it easier. So at least we can look at them and look back at them just in case something doesn't make sense and we can send a question in beforehand. And it might speed up the meeting a little.
Good point. Can we do that, Neil? Is that practical? Thank you. Alison.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same point, really, that I can appreciate sometimes they're not available, the week before when we're going to print. But even if we get them, the day before, emailed to us, it's very, very helpful. we struggled at HOSC on Monday that we had two major presentations that they just turned up with. And it was quite difficult on these screens to be able to see the detail. So I think we really have to, for the whole of next year's work programme, perhaps, you know, really sort of like lay the line down that we must have presentations in advance. You know, to do our job properly, scrutinising to adding value, we need time to be able to prepare.
Yep, I agree, and Neil, I think, has taken that on board and will do his best to oblige. Thank you. All right, then let's move to item 87, the Action Tracker Report on page 103. Any comments or questions on that? If I can just comment on the one on 24th of February, regular meetings between me and the leader and chief executive. That's now been set in progress, and there's going to be a meeting on March the 6th, Wednesday week. So if any of you want anything specific you need to raise, then can you email me and let me know what it is so that I can do that. Anything else? In which case, I will declare the meeting closed and thank everybody for coming and all for all your contributions.
Thank you, Chair. Neil.